The facility kept moving ahead of them. Not running, not retreating. Moving. That was the part that made it feel worse. A fleeing enemy made mistakes. A panicked enemy left gaps. This place did neither. It shifted with cold intelligence, drawing equipment away from exposed sectors, redirecting containment transports through deeper routes, closing access points only after the wolves had already seen enough to know something had been there. The facility was not trying to hide the fact that it was moving things. It was letting them see the movement and forcing them to chase it. Everlyn understood the insult in that. Every corridor they entered carried signs of recent removal, warm power sockets where machines had been detached, drag marks across polished metal floors, transparent containment cradles sitting empty with fluid still clinging to their inner surfaces, screens looping dead information because the real data had already been pulled deeper into the facility. They were not arriving hours late. They were arriving moments late, and that made the whole place feel like it was breathing just ahead of them. Kane moved at the front, frustration tightening his posture even though he kept his discipline. His eyes found every door, every junction, every sealed route before anyone else reached it. But there was nothing to strike, nothing to intercept, no enemy waiting in the open. The facility kept offering absence instead of resistance, and that bothered him more than soldiers would have. Soldiers could be dropped, doors could be broken, but an empty room gave him nothing except the knowledge that the real target had already slipped away. Malek carried the rescued wolf again. The man had tried walking for a while, stubborn in the way wounded wolves often were, but his legs betrayed him after the third cleared sector. Malek had taken him without comment, lifting him carefully and settling him against his shoulder, like the weight mattered less than the damage. The rescued wolf drifted in and out of awareness, sometimes staring ahead with fear, sometimes muttering broken fragments that meant nothing until the facility changed direction and his body reacted before his mind did. Lira noticed those moments every time. She stayed close enough to watch him without crowding, her attention split between the wounded wolf and the shadows ahead. Whenever he flinched at a sealed route or stiffened near a transport junction, Lira's gaze sharpened. The process had left something inside him, not control exactly, but memory. His body remembered parts of the facility his mind could not hold on to. That made him useful. It also made him vulnerable. Kalen was ahead again, moving through maintenance arteries and abandoned control spines, following the facility's movement from the inside. She no longer tried to map rooms one at a time. Rooms lied. Corridors lied. Doors lied most of all. Patterns did not. Power always moved toward importance. Security always tightened around value. Transport routes always revealed priority. So Kalen stopped following architecture and started following decisions. What she found confirmed the same thing again and again. The facility was not protecting every subject. It was not protecting every chamber. It was not even protecting every research group. Some sections were being emptied and abandoned without hesitation. Others were being stripped but preserved. A few were being buried behind layers of security so fast, the facility had to sacrifice entire pathways to do it. That told her something important. The Xarthians were not trying to save everything. They were choosing. She pushed that understanding through the link to Everlyn as a shape rather than a sentence. Everlyn received it while standing in the entrance of another cleared wing, watching pale fluid drain slowly from disconnected containment lines. The room smelled sterile and metallic, but beneath that was something warmer, something living recently removed. The pack gathered behind her in controlled silence, while the civilians stayed low and close. No one needed to say what they were all thinking. This room had mattered 10 minutes ago. Now it had been emptied because the wolves were close. "They're choosing what survives," Everlyn said. The words settled over the group with quiet force. Kane looked at the dead terminals. Malek looked at the rescued wolf in his arms. Lira looked at the corridor ahead. The other wolves understood it in their own way, through instinct more than explanation. Predators knew when prey changed direction. But this was not prey. This was a machine moving its own organs deeper into its body before they could be reached. Kelrune stood beside Everlyn and studied the emptied wing. His expression barely changed, but his silence had weight. "They did this before," he said eventually. "Not here. Not exactly. But this is how they preserve a process when a facility begins to fail. They do not defend the whole structure. They reduce it to what still matters." Everlyn didn't look away from the empty stations. "And what happens to the rest?" Kelrune's answer came without comfort. "It becomes expendable." That was when the first section died. Not exploded. Not collapsed. Died. The lights in the cleared wing dimmed in sequence from back to front. Ventilation stopped. Screens blinked out. The faint warmth in the walls faded as power rerouted away from the room entirely. A door sealed behind them with soft finality, not trapping them, simply cutting the dead section away from the living facility. The room had served its purpose. It had been emptied, stripped, and abandoned. The civilians reacted first, a ripple of fear moving through them as the air changed. Malek shifted immediately, grounding the group before panic could spread. "Easy," he said. Not loud, not gentle, just solid. The rescued wolf stirred at the sound and turned his head toward the darkening room, his eyes widening with sudden clarity. He tried to speak, but only a broken breath came out. Everlyn stepped closer. "What is it?" He swallowed hard, staring into the dying section like he could still see what had been removed from it. "They cut away what slows them," he whispered. The facility answered before anyone else could. Somewhere deeper, a low structural groan rolled through the floors, followed by a vibration that traveled in one direction only. Down. Kalen felt it through the maintenance spine and froze. Not fear. Recognition. A heavy transport system had just activated beneath them, larger than the convoys they had already seen. Not a small relocation. Not a room being cleared. A whole sector being moved. She followed the vibration through the wall with one hand pressed against the metal, eyes narrowing as data flickered across a half-active panel beside her. The symbols shifted too fast to translate, but the movement pattern was clear. Multiple routes feeding inward. Power rerouted to a central lift structure. Security layers folding in behind it. She sent the impression to Everlyn immediately. Big movement. Deeper. Everything is feeding the same direction. Everlyn turned before Kalen finished sending it. "Move." The pack moved with her. This time they did not search every room. They did not stop at every sealed door. They followed the movement. Down through a maintenance slope. Across a narrow junction where the walls pulsed with rerouted power. Past a chamber that sealed itself while they were still passing it, closing so slowly and confidently that it felt less like a door and more like a decision being made in front of them. The facility was shedding layers. It was becoming smaller, harder, more protected. Kane reached the next crossing first and stopped sharply. Ahead, through a wide observation barrier, they saw it. A vertical shaft dropped through the center of the facility, vast enough to swallow whole chambers. Platforms moved inside it, some rising empty, others descending under escort. Containment units were locked into heavy frames. Data cores were mounted beside them. Xarthian research teams moved quickly, but without panic, abandoning equipment that no longer mattered while protecting units marked with higher priority bands. The entire facility was feeding itself downward. For a moment, no one spoke. The scale of it stole the words first. They had been following rooms and corridors, thinking in terms of places they could reach. But the facility was not built around rooms. It was built around movement. Everything they had seen, processing holds, redesigned chambers, transport routes, emptied wings, was part of a larger circulation system. The facility could pull its most valuable pieces out of danger faster than the wolves could fight their way to them. Everlyn watched one of the descending platforms vanish into the dark below. She could feel the missing thread somewhere beneath that movement, still distant, still alive, still being carried away by a system that didn't need to run because it had been built to move without fear. Kane's hands tightened at his sides. Lira lowered her head slightly, tracking the escorts. Malek held the rescued wolf closer as the man began trembling again. Kane appeared from a side passage above them, dropping down lightly onto the walkway and moving straight to the observation barrier. She looked at the shaft once, then at the power flow along the walls. "This isn't a route," she said. "It's a spine." Everlyn's eyes remained on the descending platforms. "Can we stop it?" Kane didn't answer quickly. That was answer enough. She studied the timing, the power, the security locks, the number of systems feeding into it. "Not from here." The words landed harder than a no. Not from here meant there was somewhere else, somewhere controlling it. Everlyn felt the shape of the next truth before Kane said it. The facility was not just moving assets randomly. It was obeying a hierarchy. Every relocation, every sealed route, every sacrificed room, every protected convoy had to be coordinated from somewhere. Not a chamber, not a terminal, a control structure. A place where the facility's decisions became action. Kane touched the observation barrier lightly, following the downward path with her eyes. Everything feeds toward one command layer: transport, containment, power, research priority. It's not one room, but it has a center. Operationally. Kane looked at her. "Can you find it?" Kane's expression hardened. "I can find what it controls." Everlyn finally stepped back from the glass. The realization had been building since the first empty room, but now it settled fully. They could chase transport platforms forever. They could break one chamber, rescue one subject, mislead one system, and the facility would keep moving. It would keep cutting away dead sections and dragging anything valuable deeper. Every victory would become temporary because the machine controlled the board. The rescued wolf lifted his head again, eyes clearer than before, fixed on the shaft below. "They always move them before the end," he whispered. The words were barely there, but the meaning struck through the group. Before the end of what? None of them knew yet. Everlyn did not ask. Not then. Some answers were traps when time was already moving against you. She turned toward the pack. Not all of them could understand the systems. Not all of them could follow what Kane had seen. But they could understand this. Chasing was losing. The facility had taught them that itself. Every cleared room, every sealed path, every descending platform had delivered the same message. It could move faster than they could rescue. It could abandon more than they could save. It could protect the heart of the process while sacrificing everything around it. Everlyn looked down into the shaft one last time. Then she said the truth aloud. "We can't win by chasing it." No one argued. They had seen enough. The facility kept moving beneath them, carrying its most valuable pieces away, confident that distance, systems, and priority routes would keep them out of reach. For now, it was right. But it had made one mistake. It had shown them that everything led somewhere, and if everything led somewhere, then somewhere could be taken.